Well, God bless you one and all, and welcome back to the Bishop's Corner. And of course, my name is Bishop Dr. Herbert N. Scott, the Chief Prelate of the Liberty Hall Cathedral of Praise, right here in the heart of Brooklyn. And certainly, we do want to shout out tonight to the man of God who is responsible for this program, Philip Reed, who is affectionately known as Dr. Phil. And Dr. Phil, we just want to applaud you, young man, for doing a tremendous job. God bless you richly. Well, tonight we have a very, very explosive subject that we are dealing with. However, before we should go into that, let me just introduce the panel that we do have tonight. We are so blessed to have with us Jeanette Semister, that's with us. I believe that she's on for the first time. Can we make her feel welcome? Young lady, certainly it's a pleasure to have you on the Bishop's Corner. Next, we want to thank the Lord for Lowe's Moore, that's with us. It's been some time since we had him on, but young man, it's a pleasure once again to have you on the Bishop's Corner. And certainly we are blessed to have Coach Clevon that's with us tonight. Can we make him feel welcome? Coach, always a pleasure indeed, young man. Thank you very much for weighing in on the Bishop's Corner. Last but not least, we want to thank the Lord for Rashawn Trower that's with us tonight. Can we make him feel welcome? Young man, it's a pleasure to have you on the Bishop's Corner. Well, tonight we're dealing with spiritual reflections on manhood. However, before we should go into the program tonight, I believe that Dr. Phil would like to give us a short video. Dr. Phil, it's in your hands.
I can't hide myself. I don't expect you to understand. I just hope I can explain what it's like to be a man. It's a lonely road, and they don't care about what you know. It's not about how you feel, but what you provide inside that home. Yeah, I know this life can really beat you down. You wanna scream, but you won't make a sound. Got so much weight that you've been holding, but won't show any emotion. As a man that goes unspoken, that we can't cry when life gets hard. Unconditional love for women, children, and dogs. We know that we just have to play our parts, and don't nobody give a damn about our broken hearts. Yeah, as a man we gotta pave our way. Our only function is to work and slave. There's no respect for you if you ain't paid. You're disregarded as a human and you can't complain. And if you ever make it up and actually reach that place and find a woman that you love and give her your last name, you'll feel the things that you provide is only why she stays. And when you try to explain, you'll say, I can't hide myself. I don't expect you to understand. I just hope I can explain what it's like to be a man. It's a lonely road, and they don't care about what you know. It's not about how you feel, but what you provide inside that home. Don't give up, keep fighting. As a man, our sun is our horizon, and our father's actions play a role, and we end up like them. So they can't let us see them hurt, cause we'll embody what they do and start a generational curse. No wonder most men are so depressed, all the things that they can't express. They go to war, get thrown on the shelf, then go back to war with their mental health. Then grab that bottle and ask for help, try to pull themselves out of hell, then fall back down and then realize that they're gonna have to do it themselves. It's the circle of life. As a man you provide, they don't know what you're worth till the day that you die, and that's when they start crying. Then move on to a man to confide in. That's why we feel we can't hide ourselves. We don't expect you to understand. We just hope we can it's like to be a man. It's a lonely road, and you don't care about what we know. It's not about how we feel, but what we provide inside that home. Inside that home. It's not about how we feel, but what we provide inside that home. Inside that home.
Well, that was indeed a very, very beautiful song with so much meaning. It's impregnated with a tremendous amount of gems. Oh, yes, I can't hide myself. I don't expect you to understand. I just hope I can explain what it's like to be a man. And hear me, it is indeed a lonely road. Well, tonight we are dealing with spiritual reflections on manhood. The first question for our consideration tonight is this: how does Dax address issues of vulnerability? Let's deal with the vulnerability first, and then we'll go on to mental health and etc., etc. Let's put that question first of all to Coach. Coach, how say you? How does Matt Dax address issues of vulnerability? How say you, young man?
Oh man, first it's an honor and a distinction to be on this platform with these distinguished gentlemen. I mean, I'm really and queen for the evening. I'm just very grateful to be here. And I don't, just have a humble opinion about that idea of vulnerability. I think we did kind of chop it up a little bit before we went live. And, it just comes down to two things for me. It comes down to this idea of personal growth and development, which in a fancy way we kind of call self-mastery. And it also comes down to a real spiritual understanding, which we would call a God consciousness. I think any man that spends a couple of weeks, a couple of months, a couple of years, or a lifetime focusing on self-mastery with all the personal and growth and development that comes with it, plus a true spiritual awareness of God consciousness, where they see God when they look in the mirror. These two dynamics may seem a little extreme, but this is how you become bulletproof and immune to the criticisms of the world. And once a man is immune to the criticisms of the world and you don't give a damn what anybody thinks or says about you, you know you're righteous, you know you have honor, then you're not scared of your past, you're not scared of vulnerability, you're not scared of transparency. You know your pain and your process is nothing but a story to liberate another person. So now you're actually excited to be vulnerable. You're excited to be transparent. And if you ever wanted a real loving relationship with a woman, the best are when you really vulnerable and transparent. And if you can't be that with her, she's probably not the woman for you. But when you can have that type of experience, then you really have the different level of love and happiness. So those two things I think are the key, because a man's got to be solid to get rid of that fear to tell his truth.
Yeah. Man has to be solid. Okay, let's hear from Lois. Lois, how say you, sir? You're muted.
I found out that earlier. I had a chance to listen to it, and then listening to it again, you can almost, in his words, in the song, you can kind of, as he's going through the process, you can relate to it. You can relate to experiences that you've had. And I personally can relate to it as, some of the things that maybe my father was going through, and some of the things that I was going through growing up, and trying to process how am I going to react or respond to something. And so, but I think I mentioned earlier, I can't remember anybody really asking me, other than the last one of the times I went to the doctor's office, he asked me how I was feeling, or she was asking me how I was feeling, after I had an infection in my foot, and I wasn't all together there. It was the first time somebody asked me, do you feel anxiety? Do you feel like you're depressed? I've never really had that asked of me. And I remember, just real quickly, when I used to take my kids to the doctor's office. Dr. Hall used to ask, particularly when they became middle school and teenagers, my daughters and my sons, he would always ask them, "How do you feel?" You know, I used to always wonder, why do you feel this or do you feel that? I thought it was strange for a doctor, other than to give you a checkup, but then to ask you how you felt, you know, and how you're managing school or how you're managing socially in the doctor's office. So, yeah, in that song, you're kind of hearing, you know, bringing out some of them things that we may miss or from somebody not asking us how we feel.
Okay. Thank you much, young man. Thank you much indeed. Okay, the question is, how does Dax address issues of vulnerability? Let's put that to Rashawn. You're muted.
There we go. First and foremost, I want to say thank you again for having me on the platform and giving me a chance to participate. And in listening to this song, it reminds me so much of my older brother. Unfortunately I lost my older brother a little over a year and a half ago, and he was the epitome of vulnerability and showing that it's okay to let your emotions out. And you know, just showing you that as a man, you know, we do wear a mask, we hide our emotions, we keep our feelings bottled up inside. And I was just speaking with my cousin earlier today, and I was just giving him a few words that I always got from my brother on a random phone call. I just told him, "Hey man, I love you," you know. And as a man, hearing that from another man, it's really, really tough hearing that, you know, because we say that to our women, we say that to our children, but to each other, we very rarely say that. And that little bit of vulnerability, just giving those emotions and hearing them from someone who you know cares about you, cares about your emotional well-being, and that those words truly mean something. You never know when they come, how they can affect that person, and how they can brighten that person's day.
I just love the chorus of the song. I don't expect you to understand. I just hope I can explain what it's like to be a man. And certainly we've heard from you men. Now let's hear from the only lady that we have on the panel. And I'm sure that something powerful is coming from Jeanette. Jeanette, what say you, young lady? You're muted, you're muted.
Okay, I really feel honored to be here, but I feel like I don't want to be mistaken as a feminist, first of all. I think this is a very provocative topic. And the reason why is because we know throughout history, first of all, biblically, men were put here as a leader. That's not, I say that biblically, right? And I see where right now society's expectation of men is shifted, you know, due to culture, due to norms and values and perceptions. The gender role is shifted. So the expectation of a man has changed over time. And vulnerability falls in place because some men, there are three things that affect them because of the change, or I would call it the switch. It's emotional intelligence, that falls in their vulnerability, and also the responsibilities. So I love the song, and I listened to the song quite keenly with like close reading. There's a lot of emotion in that song. And when I look at the emotion, a lot of questions come to my mind. You know, what shaped Dax's experience? Why is he singing the way he sings in terms of the words? I'm only going by the words. The tune is okay. I first think that there has to be a reason. And the reason why he wrote that song, there has to be a personal situation that he is writing about. So I do think that it comes down to individual roles as a man and experience why we can see diversity in behaviors. Because the modern man has a new behavior. The modern man would maybe be shaped as someone who thinks that a woman could take his role, regardless. So we have to look at how a man was raised, his environment, also how he relates to a female. And I think that is a part of the vulnerability that the man would be exposed to. His environment plays a big part, how he's raised, his exposure, and all that. So, what is my position on it? I believe Dax is expressing his personal grains. I believe he has gone through certain things that nobody even bothered to delve into a deep way. I believe he wants to say something that he himself doesn't even know how to explain it. It's more psychological. So it's very a troublesome topic.
Mhm.
And it's not to say women are expecting, because like I said before, it depends on the role that the man takes.
Thank you much, young lady. Well said indeed. Now, you said something that's very provocative. You said that the role is shifted. It's
Yeah.
shifted. Okay. There was a time when men were expected to be macho. Now, okay, we see that men can be somewhat vulnerable. Men can shed tears. Question. You also said that it's also an individual thing. Okay, depends on how the person was raised. Let me put all of that to these men that's on. Do you men agree with that? That the rule is shifted and it also depends on how the person was raised? How say you? Let's put that to Lowe's, to Coach, and to Rashawn. How say you?
Well, yeah, I think the sister brought up some amazing points. I think everything has to be held in not only historical content, but just the evolution of a Black man's experience in this country. We have been, I guess, de-edified as public enemy number one in this country. It's a heavy burden, and you have to understand that there's been a huge political case to emasculate men in this country through the gender modification of the foods that we eat, the manipulation of foods, and through what you see in the media, and the changing of the sexes, and just the way they use our culture, whether it's through, I don't know, the hip hop and the this and that. Listen, men are being programmed not to be men, from the sense that I think the sister is talking about, and what I've heard Brother Moore speak about this evening. So that's a battle in of itself. And then when you talk about also the criminalization of men, there's a systematic approach to make earning more difficult. And then you have that situation where, what is it to be a man? Are you in a position to protect and provide? Has that ability been castrated? So when you look at the judicial system, when you look at the political system, economically, it's very difficult. And then you look at the emasculation of men, which is definitely a purposeful. It could be. I would think it would be very difficult. And everyone on here has studied history. So you also have, she mentioned a term that's on fire right now, emotional intelligence. But let's not forget what the other sister taught us, Joy Leary, about post-traumatic slave syndrome, where we listen. I'm going to pass the mic, but we're people who have not had any therapy. And I've never seen a person be raped or abused on any level and not have therapy and then supposed to be functional. So things are changing because, there's a lot of healing that still needs to take place in our community. Yeah.
Okay. Lowe's, Rashawn?
Rashawn, yeah, go ahead, Rashawn.
Okay. Coach, you mentioned a lot of healing that was needed. And that's something that I wholeheartedly agree with, because it just in what I just said about speaking with my brother, I was raised in a really close-knit emotional household, right? But in my line of business, it's a lot of distrust, and that can only come through coaching and through healing. And it's like a lot of people, like you said, have that post-traumatic slave mentality where we don't trust each other, and that's something that, like, as a group, no matter how hard we try to bring others along with us, we just can't, because we can't, for some reason or another, we just don't trust each other. We just can't trust each other, no matter what it is that we're doing. If we see one person is doing it great, then someone is trying to tear them down on the other side. Or if we see someone is doing bad, then a lot of us would rather just leave them alone and let them do bad and not bring us down, as opposed to, how does the saying go? High tide raises all ships.
Yeah.
If we were in some way, somehow able to lift everyone up together, everyone would be lifted up. Not just those of us who may be doing better than others. It would be everyone who needs to work together to bring everyone up.
Okay. Anyone else like to comment? Luz?
Yeah, I just real quick. Phil and I was talking. Dr. Phil and I was talking the other day about masculinity, and I said, within it, there has to be a balance, especially the aspect of emotion and masculinity. You have to find the balance, because I believe there's a time in which you should be vulnerable. You should be able to cry. But then there needs to be a time with men that they need to be strong, right? So on the pendulum, the pendulum could swing this way, and we can be totally masculine and show no emotions, which is not good, right? Or you can swing, with the society we're living in right now, you can swing to the other side of it and be totally emotional, right? So we crying at everything, and we emotional about everything, and that's not balance, right? So I just believe there's a time when they need to see a side of me, like when my youngest son was born with spina bifida. They needed to see, I needed to be strong when my son was born, right? And there was a transparent sack on his back, and my wife was like, what's going on? And she just gave birth. And then immediately they take the baby away, right? And they helicopter him to another hospital, transport him into another hospital. Now I have to be strong for my wife.
Yes.
Right. And because she just gave birth, and I had to be strong, and they just wished the baby away. And then next thing you know, I was gone. So she's in the hospital. Right. So by the time I get to the other hospital, right, my wife finally gets there, and then I can show my vulnerability. I started to, as I was crying with her, protecting her and crying with her, I started to speak, right? And I started to speak. I will see him walk. I will see him talk. I will see, even in the midst of my emotion, right, I was still showing that, hey, I'm here for you. I got you. I'm going to be strong in the midst of that. And my kids needed to see it too, that their father was strong, but yet he was able to be emotional at the same time. So it's a balance.
The area of vulnerability, we could talk about that from here until tomorrow, but because of time. Okay, the question is, how does DAX address issues of mental health? Mental health. And we see that Dr. Phil is on. Dr. Phil, would you like to be a part of this conversation, sir? I'm sure that
absolutely, Bishop. Absolutely.
You can add to this. Okay, so let me ask you to weigh in at this time, please, sir. Please.
Well, okay, so we all know mental health, especially among African American, colored folks, is a big issue, because it's a faux pas in our community. You mentioned mental health. I'm not crazy. I don't need to go to counseling. What are you talking about? I need to go counseling, right? It's almost like a negative when you say to somebody, no, you got to check your emotional state, or you're kind of unstable, man. you know, you need some work. But, I think mental health is important. It's important for us to be aware when we're off balance, or have people around you that will tell you, you know, something is wrong. You need to get some counseling, right? You're not acting right. Or, last week you cussed out so and so, and I've never seen you do that. You need to talk to somebody, right? I think all of us need that friend that will pull us to the side, sit us down, and say, brother, you need to do this, right? You need to do it for your family. You need to do it for yourself, because the pressure, like the pressure in the song that Dax is talking about, is all really about our perception of what we're doing, right? It's really all about how people and I know what we say. Well, yeah, I don't care what people think, but eventually, you care. You know, if we're talking about if we're talking about the social effects of it, you go out there, you get pulled over for no reason. There's some areas I don't drive because I know I'll get pulled over for just being who I am. Right. So I stick to the highways. I don't take some of these local routes primarily because there is there's a person sitting on the side waiting for someone like myself. Right. I remember one time I got pulled over for a light that wasn't, out, but I got a ticket for it and I had to go to court for it. Right. So, you have all of these social dynamics. You have all the stereotypes. You have the I know I'm being long, but I'm going to hand it over. You have the stereotypes from your own community. You have the stereotypes from other communities. And then you have your own personal family stereotypes that you're dealing with. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of areas that influence who we are, that whether we accept it or deny it, is real, right? How your parents thought about you affected you. How your sisters and brothers thought about you affected you. And even though we're grown, some of those things are still stuck back there talking to us. So, yeah, mental health is important.
Question, Doc, and I know that you want to pass by quickly, but mental health, could that also lead to toxic masculinity?
It's the primary cause of toxic masculinity, right? Because we have a tendency of not facing things. We have a tendency of not dealing with things, and like Coach Clavon was talking about, whenever we don't want to deal with something, we get the makeup out, we put it on there, put the mask on, and say, I'm okay, I'm good, right? And the thing about doing that is it becomes the habit of doing it. So you're not lying, you're not really lying to people. You're lying to yourself enough to believe that this mask is really who I am. And how many layers do you have to put on before you realize that you're none of those layers? You're not James Bond, you're not Superman. You're not John Wick, and you're not so and so. You are, whoever you're supposed to be. And I think once we get a chance to accept that, I think there's got to be some level of acceptance in saying, okay, yes, I am not this person, I'm not that person, but I'm okay being me. Right? Once you discover who that is and you can respect that, everything else around you starts to compensate for it. I'm going to say this last, and then we'll move on. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine earlier, and I said to them, there's one thing that the Holy Spirit has been dealing with me on, is that Everything that we need, we already have inside of us.
Mm.
And I said, look at everything around us. A caterpillar has a butterfly inside of him, but he doesn't know that until he goes through the process of development to becoming that, right? A seed goes through a horrible process of going into the ground and being torn apart. But when it's done, it's no longer a seed, it's a tree, right? You can't even recognize it because of the transition that it had to go through. And so what makes us think that we don't have what we need inside of us? The pressure is there to help us get it out.
Thank you. Excellent indeed. Well said, young man. I
Thank
couldn't
you,
put it
Bishop.
better myself. I like it. And that's a message, Bill. It's in you. It's in you. The question is, how does DAX address issues of mental health? Let's put that same question to Jeanette. How say you, young lady?
Wow. I think the theme of his song is really about three things: masculinity, vulnerability, and societal expectations. I think those are the three primary things he's talking about. And, it also delves in the pressure men face, or the man face, to kind of conform to this traditional norm or expectation. And, while at the same time trying to encourage them to show their emotions and their individuality. So it's like it's walking that thin line. Man is walking that thin line. If I show my vulnerability, am I going to be seen as this, or am I going to be seen as that? And if I don't, I'm not really expressing my manhood. So I think what Dax is challenging is a stereotype, and he wants to promote something. He wants to promote the self-awareness as that essential part of manhood. If you listen to his song carefully, he's also shouting out about the stereotype, but on the other hand, he's trying to promote that manhood. That's what I should be, but I'm not. And why am I not? Because he is getting pushed back by societal expectations. So I believe that part of mental health is what he struggles with. Who do I please? How do I bear this up? And that's a challenge across the board for men. Like, you're going to please yourself, or you're going to please the society or the people who criticize you. I think if men would stand up and be stronger, and I don't know if I'm saying too much here, they can show your vulnerability, show who you are, and like I would say, perform, do the thing. I will stand up to the man and say, do the thing. A lot of times, men don't do the thing because they feel like they're going to show too much emotion and too much vulnerability. So, what am I saying here? Be the man.
Young lady, let me ask you a question. Okay, what would you say is the main takeaway from this song? The main thing that Dax is trying to get over to us men?
I think, and as a writer, I have mental notes, but I do jot notes down because I listen to the song 3 times in order to be correct, politically correct. I think it's talking about the man with the traditional. It's defined as a condition being a growing adult. So because you're a growing adult, it often associates you with different qualities like strength, courage, responsibility, leadership, and because of those, you have those factors that you have to bear in mind. It can weigh you down as a man with your own feelings, like I think Phil Orlow said it. You have to seek, I'm going to say, help. You have to talk. You have to kind of dig into your inner self. Don't just show the emotion, or don't just not show the emotion. Talk. Get the help from professionals, because a lot of times men go through things and they don't talk, but they act. They act it out. So I think Dax wants us to kind of have the concept of the man will evolve over time, and the interpretation can come across in different cultures and generations. One culture of that manhood is going to come across different from the other culture. So where do we stand here? Where do we draw the line? You know, the main thing here is to, I'm
Go ahead.
sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say the main thing here is just to be yourself, be an individual, be, I think it was Dr. Seuss who said this, be who you are, no, be who you are, no, not Dr. Seuss, Bernard Baruch said this, say what you feel and say what you want, be what you want, say what you feel, because those who matter don't mind, and those who mind don't matter. A lot of times, that's what men need to do. I'm a woman, that's what I do. I say what I want, I say how I feel, because those who matter don't mind to me, and those who mind never matter what I say.
Mm-hmm.
I want to connect. I want to throw something on top of that, because here's my concern with that, in the sense where, as a person whose father died at around 8, I spent a majority of my teenage years and my young adult years trying to find the man inside of me, because my model was gone by the time I was 8 years old.
Mm.
So I have to tell you, I did not have a lot of foundational, things, pillars to say, yes, this is it. I made a lot of mistakes.
Mm.
I messed up quite a bit in discovering who I am now, because people interpreted me in one way. I got branded several times over, right? Because of what I didn't know, right? But what I was searching for. And I think that's what part of what the song is saying. Is like, sometimes we're not prepared.
Mm.
Sometimes nobody gives us the tools to say, this is what a man is, this is not what a man is. We find out by people shaming us. We find out by people branding us. No, but I mean, it's going in line with what you're saying. But it's how we find out these things now. In tribal days, you will run with the men, right? You reach a certain age, you have to go through a certain ritual, and then you become a man. Now you can go hunt. Now you can go have a wife. Now you get prepared to carry out manhood, because it was even a lot simpler then. But I'm saying, like, now you see boys looking for manhood,
Mhm.
and looking for what manhood means, but they still have all the feelings of a man.
Mm.
Right? All the feelings of the carnal man. I want to be in a relationship, I want to have sex, I want to have kids, but the emotional structure is not even there. What do we do with grown men who have no foundation of what a man looks like? They don't know how to treat your wife, because they've never seen how a real man should treat his wife. The man they saw was a shell of a man himself.
Mm.
And he was beating his wife around and, mistreating her. And it becomes this mental warfare of, how do I not become him that I saw? But then you become a man and you become him because that's what you saw.
I would like to say something, Dr. Phil.
Mm.
I know there's a story behind that, what I'm going to say. There are 2 brothers in a family, and they grew up in a bad environment. The father was always beating on the mother, and the children saw everything. And they grew up and they had their own families. And one person said to one brother, "My God, I can't believe you grew up with your family, and it's so great. Look at your kids." And the brother said to him, "Well, if I lived in that environment after seeing how my father treated us and my mother, I would never like to see my kids grow up that way." And he said to the other brother, "Wow, how do you treat your kids so badly?" And that brother said to him, I grew up in an environment that all I saw was bad things. My father beating on my mother and the siblings, and that's all I knew. What am I saying here? Sometimes it takes courage and it takes an individual action for reformation of character. So I understand when you have no role model. A lot of people never had role model, especially coming from the darker ages. But there is something in every one of us that God gave us. It's an impetus to make that decision of what direction you want to go. Because the two brothers, they could grow up with their family and both beat on the two families, but one decided to take the road to the right, the
Right.
other one took the road to the left.
Mhm.
I think that can be also a story to show individualism and how we shape ourselves
Well,
or
let me say
men.
this honestly, that this is a conversation that needs to be spoken about, honestly. Okay, let me just give you one instance here, and excuse me, I mean, for interjecting, but I gotta say this. I lost my father at the age of 5. Okay, in England, Birmingham, England. And he passed away before he was 40 years of age. I was 5 years of age. And guess what? At the age of 7 and 8, instead of me being outside playing with my friends, I was inside the house painting. Painting the house. And yet I have cousins at the age of 13 that was messing up and doing this and that because their parents had died. And so it is indeed an individual thing. Okay, but because of time, I know that we have Lowe's on and Rashawn. Rashawn, let's hear from you first concerning, okay, mental health. Mental health.
I just wanted to drop in a jewel. Uh, I did a lot of personal development and self-searching, and there's a book that I came across. It's called The New Psycho-Cybernetics
Mm.
by Dr. Maxwell Maltz, and it's actually a book about psychology and about how your brain works. And I know we mentioned going to therapy. I actually still see a therapist. A lot of our people look at therapists, just like Dr. Phil said, is like, I'm not crazy. I don't need to see a therapist. No, no, no. You need to see a therapist so you don't go crazy. People don't understand that you need someone to talk to and someone to bounce your inner thoughts off of, someone who's not going to judge you. But that book, Psycho-Cybernetics, it explained to me how things worked in my mind.
Mm.
Like he gives a story about a young lady receiving plastic surgery because she felt her nose just didn't fit her face and she didn't feel beautiful. And after she got the plastic surgery, she still didn't feel beautiful because it was an emotional feeling. It wasn't a physical outward beautiful feeling. That is all mental. All these things are in your mind, and the emotions, our emotions are controlled by our mental state. So, like once you get control of your mind and how you can think, and you can accomplish anything, and you can regulate your body. If you watch some of these monks, and you can see that they can meditate to a point where they're in freezing cold temperatures, but their bodies are sweating because they have control over their mind and control over their bodies. So, just a lot of what we're talking about is people not understanding how to fully control their mind, to control their emotions, to move themselves into a better place in life. And even in listening to the song, it was just full of emotion and just a lot of self-searching and a lot of mental, I wouldn't say tragedy, but a lot of just mental, just confusion. And, once we get control of our brains and how everything works, we'll be able to move forward.
Okay. Lowe's mental health.
Yeah, real quickly, I think that was, I agree with Jen that he was something he was experiencing. But he had a platform, right? And his platform happened to be music, to be able to express somewhat how he felt, and to be able to share how he feels to a broader audience is important. My last podcast, because this is Mental Health Month.
Yeah.
the month of May, and I was sharing with a gentleman there on the podcast. You know, NBA now, Major League Baseball, NFL football, entertainers are now being able to. Everybody's become aware that players need to be able to express themselves. You know, these men grow up, all women, they grow up in whatever their environment, culture is, and they've not been able to express it, but they've been able to hide it because they play a sport, or they learn how to sing, or they learn how to dance. But they go through so much pressure to be successful, or whatever they experience as young kids in their culture of family, environment, that haven't been able to express themselves, but they found a way through the gifting, right, to hide how they feel, right? And especially when early child, Dr. Nadine Burke talks about understand the importance of early childhood trauma. Now, I didn't know I still had trauma when I wrote my first book, right? As I was writing about my family, I just started to cry. I'm like in my 50s, right? And I just started to cry, and I didn't know I was still in trauma because I've gone on to be successful, you know, as a professional athlete. And then all of a sudden I'm writing this book, and I realized that the things that happened in the past were still there. And the book was able, it helped me to kind of move on from my past by writing it. And then by sharing it, you know, sharing what I was experiencing as a child, and I was fortunate my gifting allowed me to deal with that. So yeah, mental health is real. A lot of NBA, Kevin Love, a number of basketball players have come to face, you know, of the NBA. That a lot of these men are talking about these things: panic attacks, depression. All these things are available, and the Black community is way behind on this. I mean, Terry Williams has a book on Black depression, right? And he talked about Black men in depression, right? And she has depression, so she wrote the book about it and began to speak about it, because we don't talk about it in our culture. You know, we don't talk about it at all, right? And so I think mental health is real, right? And it's important for us to have a conversation about.
Right, thank you much. Okay, the question is this: how does DAX address issues of vulnerability, mental health, and emotional well-being within the song To Be a Man? Emotional well-being within the song. Let's put that first of all to Jeanette. How say you, young lady?
Well, I'm kind of trying to remember the song right now, because it's been a while. I listened to it a couple hours ago, but I think what it's trying to do here is trying to evolve from a situation. I know the theme of this song is about a situation, and it's trying to say, I could be a good man, I could be a husband, I could support a family. But at the same time, I'm doing all these material things, and spiritually, I'm empty. And I think he wants us to hear him, not for the good things that he's doing only, but for the fact that he needs attention spiritually, which is the lymphatic part of his body. He needs some cure in there. And that's the mental health that's going to help him to evolve into being a better husband, a better caregiver, a better man. If that part is taken care of, what he's saying through the song, I can be all of this and more.
Okay, that's good indeed. Emotional well-being within the song To Be a Man. Let's put that to Rashawn.
It's just, he's talking about just how hard it is to be vulnerable as a man. You know, like I think I said it earlier, how as a man we wear a mask, we cover our emotions, and it's like we're covering our emotions so that everyone else doesn't see how much we're going through, how much we're carrying on our shoulders, the weight that we're carrying, taking care of our family just day to day, doing regular day-to-day things. Like I explained to my daughter the other day, I told her, you know, I've been in childhood and I've been in adulthood, and I got to tell you, adulthood is the closest to the ghetto I've ever been. I want to go back into childhood. Okay. Childhood is the greatest place ever. And, you know, I was telling her just, you're an adult much longer than you're a child, and you don't understand how awesome it is being a child and just being an adult. And being a man, it's so tough just putting on a facade for everyone, because every time someone sees you, you have to give them your best face. Is anyone familiar with the author, I'm Not Your Negro? For some reason, his name escapes me, but he has a quick video where he's speaking with a young lady, and she tells him, every day when you go to work and when you leave out of this house, you lie to everyone else. But then when you come home to me, you give me the real me, the real you, which is like you're taking your day out on me, you know, whereas he says, lie to me just like you lie to everyone else.
Wow.
And I can't, you know, I can't keep the facade up forever. And unfortunately, we unload on those we love the most. And, you know, so just that it's really hard. It's even tough to explain it, you know, like how we have to keep this facade up. And as men, we understand exactly what I'm talking about. But, you know, as a child or even sometimes as a woman, you may not understand the facade that we as men have to.
Okay. Do you think that most men think like Dax? Rashawn?
Yes. Yes. I do. You know, he said, I can't hide myself. You don't understand. It's hard to explain what it's like to be a man. You know, he said the only love is for children, women, and dogs. You know, you know, and you know, it's tough. It's tough. It's a great song.
I do understand, sir. Okay, emotional well-being within the song. To be like a man. Okay, let's put that to Los.
Yeah, I felt like Dax was saying, because, you know, and he in his depiction, he had a number of particularly white men, right? And like, all you think of me is a provider, right? And if a white man is feeling that, right, then what is a black man feeling? Right? Because I mean, you know, Dak is trying to say, look, I'm more than just a provider, right? I'm more than just what I give you materially or sexually. You know, I'm more than that, right? And somebody needs to recognize that, right? And then this society has changed drastically, whereas now, you know, you got more focus on, and it's great. It used to be all white men, if I could be honest, right? And then it becomes white women, right? And now black women has risen, right? So now where does that leave us, right? As a black man, where does it leave us? You know, and so, you know, we're not even looked at. I don't even think we thought of when it comes down to, as a black man, when you competing against everybody that's on the top, you know, we're not even talked about, right? We're like the invisible man right now, right? And so with that going on, I mean, it's tough for you to deal with that when nobody's calling on you, right? Nobody's giving you the they're not going to lend you anything, right? You're not going to get opportunities at different levels, right? You don't have favor like everybody else has. So even though he was portraying the images, but I think inside he was like, okay, I'm a black man and I don't have these privileges, right? But I'm more than what you see and what you hear about me.
Can I ask you a controversial question, though? What if you didn't see the image of the guy, but you heard the song? Would you think he's a black man?
If I just heard the song,
So he didn't use
right?
one word
It,
about
it
black.
would just it'd be just men. He'd be
Okay.
talking about men, but I would put it in how I felt,
Okay.
you know, when it, and I can look at another culture and say, okay, well, they got more privilege than I do, right? I'm not even being spoken of now, right? And that's how I would see myself, right? And if it wasn't for my wife and my kids, right? If it wasn't for their encouragement of me, speaking highly of me, right? Then I would definitely probably need to see a therapist for real, you know.
Okay, listen, we only have 2 minutes left. 2 minutes left. And we have not, I mean, I've got 20 questions that I've not asked. Dr. Phil, you did it again. Okay, now let me put this. Doc, it's in your hands. Okay, please.
Thank you, Bishop. This was a great conversation. And of course, an hour is no justice for this. That's why we split it up into a four-part series. And I try to get as many people's voices into this as possible. I really appreciate Lowe's, Rashawn, and Janet taking their time out. Bishop, we've been riding this train for about 3 years now, going on to 4. So, this is a great and awesome way of doing this. But I want to take a second to have Lowe's talk about the King's Movement. It is something that he's working on in Westchester, and I just want to give him a chance to talk about that.
Yeah, just real quick. Many of you know Chris Broussard. He's was with ESPN, now with Fox Sports 1 as an NBA analyst. Now he's also an anchor as well. Started the King Movement probably about 7 years ago, and there are 19 chapters nationally. We have a chapter here in Westchester called the King Movement Westchester, and just trying to get men to fellowship, trying to get men to strengthen their relationship with God, so that they can, as they strengthen their relationship with God, they will impact not only themselves, but their family, their church, and their community, and hopefully coming together, we will impact our nation as well by being the men that God has called us to be. And so it's an exciting time for the growth of men.
Awesome. And how can they reach you for that? How can they get in touch with you for that?
Well, yeah, you can definitely call me, 914-774-6659. Call me if you're interested. And we're on Facebook too as well. Westchester, King Movement Westchester. Okay,
awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I have a couple more announcements I want to share. This is Liberty Hall Cathedral of Praise is having a cruise to Dubai. And I wanted to share that with everyone. This is a great opportunity for you to take a trip at a discounted rate, because you're talking about Dubai, right? So you can get it at a discounted rate, but going with some really fun and nice folks at Liberty Hall Cathedral. So I believe that you can call this number, 347-623-1248 for more information, and ask for Donette. Okay. Next, they have a free community fair. I wanted to make sure I showed this to Rashawn so he could see this. Right. But I went last year and it was fantastic. Of course, you can see PNN and the Bishop's Corner are big supporters of this. So I want to invite everyone to join on August 24th at 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Great music, great food, great time. Come and support. It's for a good cause as well. So we want to make sure we do that. Also, on June 1st, our Apostle Lucian Rojas is having an empowerment prayer breakfast. He's going to be talking about investing. He's one of our primary financial sources here on the Bishop's Corner. And so he's going to be having a session that morning on the power of investing. And if you've missed our programs, if you want to get really into it, I think this is a great event to go to. So I want to make sure I share that with you. Don't miss it. It's going to be in Brooklyn, 1673 Dean Street, Brooklyn, New York, 11213. All right. You can call 718-221-9247 for more information. And that is it for the program today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you again next time. Take care.
Yes, now.